Okay, this is to show how to replace the door lock actuator on the 2015 GX460. You gotta take the door panel off, and to do that you start off by taking off some of the moldings. There's one in here. We'll take this off and we'll take that off, and just do that with a plastic trim tool. Take this off, you undo the plug here, so that connects it. And then we'll take this triangular piece here off as well. Once you've done that, there's two screws. There's one here, there's one here. I've seen other videos where there are more screws than that. But for this car, there's only two screws. So once you got those two screws out, you're ready to take the door panel off. And to do that, you lift up on the bottom first, and you'll hear it pop out. And you loosen those all the way up to the top. And then when the ones on the top are loose, you lift up, and it'll pop out. And now we look at the back for the various connections we need to undo in the back. Okay, so to undo this, you've got several connections. You've got an electric connection up here that you undo. You've got the connection to this light down here that you undo. And then, well, those two just work themselves loose, but those come in here, just pop those out also. And then we'll put this in the back while we work on the rest of the car. Yeah, so once we've removed the door panel, this is the actuator that sits in here. It's held in by these three screws here, and then there's a bracket in the back that holds this. This is the electric connection to the actuator, so let's go ahead and undo that. And then we'll take this down, and yeah, that's kind of sticky, so the easiest way to take that down, the best way to do it is just if you've got a razor blade or something, as you peel that, just cut that back, otherwise it ends up making this sticky mess. And this takes a 10mm ratchet. Okay, so we've got the three screws out. I'm going to take this out. That loosens up the bracket that's behind it that just holds it securely. Okay, so the actuator's not connected to anything right now, so just shove these back through the hole in the plastic, and then you just reach in and grab the whole actuator and take it out. Two things to note about this actuator. One is when you put it back in, there is a rod that comes down that needs to feed through this yellow hole right here. And what that does is that connects the outside door handle, or the panel that you pull on, to this, so that it enables it to open. So if you don't thread that rod back through, and the door won't open. You can see the rod a little bit here, but so you sort of have to feed it through there. It's a little bit hard to see. And the second thing, and this is why I had to take it apart this time, I just put this in yesterday or the day before, is that the keyhole has a cog that is supposed to seat right in here, and if that doesn't seat exactly right, you cannot open the door with the key. You can open it with the remote, but not with the key. And the other thing that doesn't work is that the touch feel when you touch the door knob to lock it. So to make sure we get this lined up this time, I'm going to take the actual lock out. We access it through here. All right, so to access the bolt that holds this in, we'll take this cover off. Hopefully it'll just pop off. And there is a wick screw that's in here, and we just unscrew that just to loosen it. You don't need to take it all the way out, I don't think. You just loosen it, and then we can pop this cover off. With one of these plastic tools. And there's the lock right there. The lock will just pull straight out once we get this loose enough. Okay, there you go, it comes off. So this time when we put this back in, we need to make sure that this seats perfectly inside there, and when it does, then it'll be able to turn. You can even hear it clicking. So apparently what I did last time was I didn't take this out, and this didn't end up being seated in there perfectly, and so to solve that problem, we're going to install the lock actuator back first, and then we'll thread this through, and we'll hear it sort of click into place when that happens. So here's the new actuator that I ordered. It will fit in there like this. One thing to point out is this yellow thing here is really important, that there is a bar that is inside the door right here. that you have to thread through here, and that is what connects the door lock on the outside to the actuator. And if you don't thread that through here, you won't be able to open the door from the outside. And I've made that mistake more than one time. So when you put that in, it's make sure before you seat this in place that you've threaded that rod through there. So looking at this, yellow one goes on top, blue one goes on bottom. So we'll do the blue one first. You have to pry the case open. Just pop that off, and the blue one comes right off. And this one, same thing. Just pop it off like that. So the yellow one goes on top. So put get the new actuator. Yellow one goes on top. Thread that and lock that in place. Blue one goes on bottom. This one also locks in place. Close that back up. And now we're ready just to slide the actuator back in and reconnect everything, and then we'll put the lock back in. Don't forget when doing this to put that rod that connects the outside door lock into here, and then we'll put it back in with the same 3 screws in the bracket. And easiest to put the bracket up here just to keep it out of your way, and we'll put that in last. So you get it more or less aligned, and then grab that rod, and you have to just sort of do this by feel, but work the rod into the hole it needs to go into, and there you go. I can feel it in there now. Once you've got those in place, then pull the bracket down. You can see where the nut here. So it sort of it comes this way, turns 90 degrees, and lines up with that hole. And what it does, you put this screw back in. And we'll tighten all that back up, and then we'll put the lock back on. And then, just so you don't forget, go ahead and plug this back in, because I know from experience, if you don't, and you put everything back together and you forget to do that, when you go to touch your doorknob to lock it, it'll beep about 10 times. It'll be a beep that you're not accustomed to hearing. So If you get all this stuff done and you hear that beeping, probably what you've got to do is plug this back in. So we've got the actuator back in. Let's go ahead and thread it through the plastic. We'll put the plastic back on here. And once we get the lock in, we're ready to put the door panel back in. But let's do the lock now. This is just a view of inside the door, so you can hopefully see where this seats once it gets in. Okay, now I'm going to get this, and hopefully we'll feel it thread itself in. Man, that went right in, so hopefully that means that it's in. I'm not sure if I can check that with my key or not, but let's see. Oh yeah, I can hear it, so that's a good sign. So it's in, and there's that wick screw in there that you tighten, and it holds it in by friction. So I'll tighten that. That should solve the problem that I was having before. That's nice and tight. I'll put the cover back on. All right, there we go. And I'll put the plug back in. And now we're ready to put the door panel back in. The door panel goes back on almost exactly where it came off, with one really important difference, and that has to do with this strip along the top, because it's impossible to hang that. And when we started, we pull it from the bottom and we lift it up. Well, it's impossible to get this back on without taking this first piece of trim off. Then we lay that on the clamp that onto the windowsill, and then everything else pushes back in. And the way that you take this off, it's just held in by 4 little clamps that we undo. Just stick a screwdriver in there and they'll pop out. One, 2. Okay, so I've got that out, and we're going to go put that on the windowsill, and then the rest of this will just pop in. I think the easiest way to put this in is to roll the window down, because it's just hard to see where these things line up. The metal piece up here, there are areas where it narrows down, and that's where these metal clamps need to go, but it's hard to see that, and you're sort of blinded by the piece here. So to roll the window down, just plug this thing back in, and then turn the car on, and you can roll it down. So when you put that in, you want these pieces sticking, out 90 degrees towards you. And if you just look in, you can tell where I've got it upside down. So you've got the metal clamps here, and those will fit over the narrow pieces of metal there. Okay, so that's in place, and now what we do is we hook all the lights back up, all the things back up in the panel, and then we just it pops back in. So to do that, we've got the light down here on the bottom, needs to be plugged back in. Plug that in. Plug in this one. This one here is just feed it to the big hole here, because it's supposed to it's supposed to plug into the main panel with the window controls, and then you've got a white lever that goes on top, and these each lock in. There's a groove in the plastic that you'll see that pop those in. And so once you've got that, and we start at the top this time, not the bottom. And again, it's easier if you have the window down to see where those line up. I line those up with the fittings and press. And then this is going to pop in. Make sure you've got your wire coming up here. Let's see that. Oh, here it is. Yeah, alright, so the panel's back on, and we've got these two screws to put back in. And then you just put the other pieces on that you took off. And just pop, they just pop back in and set everything off. We'll put this back in. Make sure you plug it in. Pop that in. This piece goes behind the door handle. Pull this in. And then this triangular piece that we took off goes back in. And that's it. Job should be done. So let's test it with the mirror down in case it doesn't work. Oh, and it does. Oh, that's fantastic. Hopefully the key works. That's good. And then the other, let's just check each of the knobs work. Yep, those work too. So I think everything is working like it's supposed to. Took multiple tries, but saved about $500 at the dealership. And that's it.